Yo, John, man, why don't you kick us off?
Word up. What it is, what it was, cuz it's your boy Herberto, and you're at the Basic Buds podcast. We got Paul, Brian, Dan, and the fam.
Hey, thanks, man. That's what's up. So John, you go by a lot of names, man. You got John Blaze, Joster, which is your government name, Herb Potter, Herb Burrito, Young Late Night, Young Snacks, Young Cigarillo. If you follow him on his IG, he goes by a lot of names.
Young something and young everything, you know what I mean? So
and looking at your IG, looks like your resume here, you're a self-proclaimed gentleman of leisure, cannabis aficionado, booze connoisseur, and a full-time positive vibe technician.
Only on days that end with Y, my friend.
Yeah, and we are here today to talk about a very hot topic. A topic that you would think would fizzle out, but I think it's just kind of getting stronger. And that's about marijuana. Ooh.
The boogeyman.
And so John, you know, as a what is this, cannabis aficionado, you know a thing.
Like
you know a thing or two about.
I know a little thing or two about the dankies, the little weedies, all the good stuff. Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing I heard recently from somebody in the business, they said you shouldn't actually call it marijuana. It should be mentioned as cannabis.
Let's refer to it as cannabis now. You know, marijuana is such a negative word, and as being a positive vibe technician, we got to change the culture. And let's use the word cannabis. It's a little bit more friendly for everyone to kind of swallow. You know what I mean?
Why does the term marijuana have such a negative connotation?
Think about it. From back in the day when weed was the outlaw thing, marijuana. The Mexicans were the ones smoking. The Mexicans and the jazz players were Mexican. We all know the history of marijuana. Now with the new world that we're in, we're talking about the medicinal uses of cannabis, the actual plant. Marijuana is the slang name for what the cannabis sativa plant is. Where the hell did marijuana come from? I don't know, but it's pretty close to saying, you know, the Mexicans smoking the marijuana. It was like a negative thing to like get them, get them out of the
kind of like a race. It was tied to a race.
It was a racial profiled. What am I trying to say?
It was just tied to.
It was tied to
like a race.
To races, you know. The black jazz players and the Mexicans smoked the marijuana. Yeah, you know, and that looked as taboo, and it was the boogeyman back in the day. But like, let's fast forward to today, 2019.
Yeah, and where we're at right now, it's crazy because I feel like so fast, right in the blink of an eye. It went to something that was kind of like taboo still, and you know, a drug.
Yes,
right.
It's still known as a Scheduled I drug.
Scheduled I drug
federally, but you know, the states have now got their own rules in regards to their cannabis laws. Everybody's still under the federal law of cannabis being a Schedule I drug, and it is illegal. Many states have passed, you know, what do you call it, propositions and stuff like that. Like California, for instance, we have Prop 215, which just ended. Now we're in Prop 64, which changes the medical to recreational, well, adult use, where where am I getting at? I'm stoned. Sorry, guys.
Well, yeah. So I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's being used kind of widespread.
The nation's going green, and so
nation is going green.
It used to be the outlaw drug, just like cocaine, heroin, all these bad things that, so to say, bad things.
Right.
But now it's busted through the door as the new beer.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm not a avid cannabis smoker. Yeah, user. But I am of the opinion that one can be a lot more messed up with alcohol than I've seen people with cannabis.
The majority of people think. You know?
Yeah.
But opinions are to everyone, man. Shout out to all our drinkers out there. We ain't knocking y'all, but y'all get too wasted on your beers. Smoke a little bit of cannabis and put that smile on your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So why don't you talk a little bit about you know, your history, you know, with cannabis, and then you know, I know Paul, you know, had a lot of questions kind of before this. We're like, you know, in deep discussion about how to use it for medicinal purposes, and you know, like now to now, like the different mixtures, the different things you can get. But this is the basic buzz, so we try to break it down.
Let's break it down.
To people who probably don't know much about cannabis, maybe thinking about dabbling in it. We can tell very different points of views of how one can take it in. But why don't you give us a little bit about your history with cannabis, and then we'll start from there.
Okay, let's do it. The year was 1995. Sophomore in high school. Or is it? Yeah, 94, 95. I'm a sophomore in high school. Scholastic wrestler. Don't do drugs. I don't drink. I don't do none of that stuff. But our friends were dabbling in marijuana.
Right.
I'm looking at my buds, and they're having a great fun-o time. And it's not that I'm looking to join their fun time, but I see they're having a fun time. Everyone used to pressure, hey, smoke some of this. I'm like, nah, man, I wrestle.
I'm an
athlete, man. I wrestle. But one day, I happened to just say, fuck it. I'm going to try it. And that day changed my life. We're hanging out in Ron's garage. We're break dancers back in the day, you know what I mean? So after practice, the guys are smoking some dank. And I decided, like, I'm gonna smoke today. You know what I mean? I'm going to smoke. And I smoke a couple puffs. At first, when I first took it in, what's the big thing about this thing? Nothing special, right? Give it about half an hour later. Next thing you know, I'm on a emotional roller coaster in the garage. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? I'm having such a good time. And as in the good time, my spirits were uplifted. I was just like happy. You know, as a kid, you know, we have a lot of energy and we have a lot going on in our little lives. When you smoke that dank, it just kind of took you to a different level. It opened up a new door where, wow, this is different from the fun that I normally have playing with my toys and doing this stuff. This kind of fun where I'm feeling something. My body just feels really good, and I'm enjoying company of my friends, my interaction with my friends.
So you got high before you got drunk?
Oh no, we were drinking as kids. You know, you know, you dabble in liquor. It's not like we're boozing, but you know, we're kids.
Couple
and
beers.
Yeah, what are we? High school, 16 years old, 15, 16 years old. You know, you've drank. You know, if you're a young kid that was growing up in the 90s, and if you didn't drink by the time you're 15, 16 years old, we probably don't know you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that was the circles you had. And that's where marijuana came into play. You know, people were drinking, they're experimenting new things. The older friends, the older kids passed on to the bros. Got some weed and you want to smoke some weed? And they started loving it. Pass the word to your friends. You know, you're guilty by association. Once you try it, everyone's doing it. We're all getting high now. And now, like I said, it changed my life. From there, I never turned back. I haven't stopped smoking weed since that garage fucking afternoon. You know what I mean?
Did you continue with your athletics, though?
I did. I did briefly until high school was over. After high school, my ambition for being a wrestler kind of dissipated because this is prior to UFC, MMA sports. Where the heck would a wrestler go to the Olympics or, you know, those kind of games? But that's not a career choice. Wrestling was like a hobby. My athletics was something that just kind of went away. Whereas with the cannabis, when I started smoking cannabis, I started getting deeper into that and delving into ways of smoking it, like learning how to roll a blunt. You know, think about it. When's the last time, or when was the first time you learned to roll a blunt? We're dumb kids. We got a Philly blunt and we wiggled out the guts until it emptied out. And it was stuff.
Philly blunt's a cigar, right? Cigar, yeah.
The old Philly blunt cigars. Back in the 90s, it was Philly blunts, Optimos, Garcia Vegas. They didn't have the wraps that we have today. Everyone uses these wraps, blunt wraps, for convenience.
That's where it all came from.
And we started from the beginning, man. This is all experimental. And it's crazy because what we're doing now in 2019, we're doing that shit in 1999, y'all. So it's funny how the weed culture still stays the same. The game still stays the same, but the players just change. You know what I mean?
That's a good way to put it because you know, I talk to more and more people about this, and a lot of people that are users of cannabis are not the ones that you would expect, right? Totally. Like real professional, you know, executive type folks.
All walks of life use the cannabis, you know, because aside from the medical benefits, you have a good time. It's you know, the recreational, you know, is really where it's at. We were all pot users before they started using the medical terms for it. You know what I mean? Let's not fake the funk. We're breaking it down, and we're not gonna fake the funk. Oh, y'all, we're getting high to get high. not to medicate. But now, as the 2000s went through, they found that there was medical benefits from it, and it was better to just medicate rather than get high. You see what I mean? And that's why we got to change that culture. Make it cannabis a medicating thing. It's a wellness thing now. Before we used to just get high, you know?
Yeah.
Talk about Brian. We were talking about when we were younger. How would you get your bag? In a big bag of like weeds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now you get in a nice
Yeah.
little
What did you say
container.
earlier, Brian? What did you do?
I'd go down to Rampart.
Yep. Get a bag over on Rampart. You know, you
Bag
have no
of stress from
selection.
Rampart, right?
All right, you go to one corner. There's some guy standing out. You knew he was selling weed, so he would look at you. He said, "You want some weed?" I'm like,
Right?
"Yeah." And he goes, "All right, drive down the block."
Oh shit.
And then so I drive down the block and park. I'm sure he gave him the signal, and I would just park, and some guy would come up to my car with a freezer bag, and there's one long leaf, or one part of the leaf. It was all dry, and they give it to you in a bag, and they roll it up,
Yeah.
and you give the guy the money, and you take off.
Right. And that's
See, that's crazy.
that
drug
is
culture.
that is
Drug
that is
culture,
and for the progression to where we're at today.
where we're at today. Thank you.
Where you can literally go in a store like buying a candy bar, right?
Yeah.
And you're still buying candy bars, but it's laced
we
up.
just walked down the street just not even half an hour ago, and like I was telling Brian, man, doesn't it feel great to just walk into a store and just buy weed like you're going into a 7-Eleven buying a Slurpee? You know what I mean? It's that convenient, it's that easy. Well, in California
Yeah.
you know.
Was it like that
everybody
in Orange County as well?
It's like that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see the difference, because not too long ago I actually bought some cannabis.
Right.
And the interesting part was, it came from Los Angeles. Some person
Mecca.
drove down to Orange County to deliver. It was organic, veganic.
Gluten free.
And before I purchased, I was able to chat with someone on the website and ask questions, and they did the
That's
best that
crazy.
they could. And
Isn't that
2
crazy?
hours later, bam, it's
At your
front door.
doorstep, Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh yeah.
Had a question about some empty pipes.
To touch on that a little bit, it is kind of crazy because I was with a friend of mine who actually got, and then you can break this down because I'm still a little bit confused when they say like med and rec. But anyways, I have a friend that was getting their med card online. So the process was you go online to a website and you kind of list down your ailments, right? And then somebody calls you from a physician will call you, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's like a video chat.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, like Skype. It was Skype.
It's a new world we're living
Yeah,
in.
and
Everything's
then
digital
you're able, and they either you're able to print it out, and they'll mail you like a card, right? And it all happened in like 15 minutes, like signing up for
yeah.
what I mean. So
Yeah.
anything,
It's like signing up
for like
for
a
a
magazine
website.
subscription.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So
like 11:30 at night, and you have to take a picture, right? Because you need a picture for your ID card. So it's 11:30 at night, and it's a picture of me on my webcam. My hair's like this, like
yeah, you look like a stoner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was saying to myself, I was like, man, I wish everything was that easy. Like they
kidding.
must have some pretty good money and technology behind this stuff. You know what I mean? Like especially like dealing with the DMV. Like why can't the DMV be that easy?
that convenient,
that convenient, right?
That streamlined.
It's just so
But you know
crazy.
what? With all the verifications and all that stuff, the recommendation is a recommendation. It's not really like your
Okay,
weed
so break
card.
down
It's-
what's the difference between when you hear med and rec.
Okay, well, see, in the terms of med and rec is referring to recreational use. Med is medicating, right? So
And you need a
that's
card for.
You need a card to medicate. You need to only be 21 and over to recreationally enjoy cannabis. But see, the times are changing. 215 was a proposition for medicating, for patients to medicate and acquire cannabis. That's now going to be done as of 2019, now that Prop 64 passed, which is the Adult Use Marijuana Act. That makes it recreational use the way to go now. Because of that happening
In California.
we're speaking on California, because 64 passed, 215 in the legislators' eyes kind of doesn't mean shit anymore. So they kind of phase it out. They're going to phase in 64 and start applying laws and what else? Laws and amendments to it of what can be done. Like say, for instance, when you're driving in a car, now that you are under 64 proposition, you can't have any kind of cannabis products in your cabin of the car, or that'll be considered an open container.
Just like
Even
alcohol.
just like alcohol. You know, people drink and drive. They sit in the car and they drink their beer and stuff. But if you were to get pulled over and there's an open can in the car, the driver gets cited for open bottle, open container citation. Same thing's going to be with cannabis in this new Prop 64 world that we're living in now. We were protected with 215, where you can roll in your ride, and you could have your weed with it because you're medicated.
Yeah,
as long as you're not.
It's like having a bottle of pain pills.
Exactly.
Right.
But, you know, just like pain pills, like alcohol, it should be in your glove compartment or in your trunk of your
and
your
you can't technically be under the influence while driving.
while using it. That's why they have the warnings.
And can you explain, Paul, you might even know, or you might even have to fact check this, B, but I'm still very confused about how it is legal in California but illegal in the country. How does that even work? So, like, technically, could you get caught up with, like, the FBI, like the feds, a national level?
Yeah, if you think about it, anybody can be in trouble under federal, you know.
Yeah, so, like, these places that are selling it, the feds can crack down on them, even though it's legal in California.
Speaking of that.
But why wouldn't they?
Well,
I don't know, that's the part that's
the feds
confusing.
just crashed 3 local sessions. What's been happening in the cannabis industry is farmers market type parties are happening where they call them sessions. And at the sessions, you know, vendors and patients, it was a medical thing. It started off as a medical thing, but now how everything's changed, it's more of just like the weed parties. Weed parties are happening. In this past weekend, 3 of the weed parties got shut down by the police. So that's, you know, let's break it down. You got a gang of weed in the police's hands now. The vendors and people that were partaking in that are all under investigation in some sort of way, if you think about it, because if they got raided, they must have taken phones, taken, you know, information of the people that they busted. So now the feds are watching it. So that's how you can get in trouble under federal statutes. In the statewide, it's not like the cops are arresting them, you know, and locking them up under the state guideline. It was probably passed on. Like,
so
these guys are under investigation. This thing's happening. Things don't just happen like, oh, we're driving down the street and all of a sudden there's a session there. We're gonna bust them. Come on, Fed friends.
Yeah.
They must have been investigated for a while. The local passed on, shared information with their federal friends, and now they can move in. And
I guess I'm just confused as to why the feds couldn't be able to swoop up on every single store on
they
every
could
corner.
if they really wanted to, but resources and, you know, it's a big money game. You know, they want the big fish.
Yeah,
they're not
got
gonna catch a bunch of guppies. And what are they gonna do with all all that BS that they catch?
Does anybody know where we're at in terms of like national legislature and because Canada, right? Canada
just recently legalized it for recreational use countrywide. As of like July of last year.
Yeah, and are there any other countries that are
Spain?
that progressive? Like,
Spain's pretty much the new Amsterdam of the cannabis world.
Oh yeah, there's obviously
Spain,
Amsterdam.
yeah. Barcelona holds a yearly expo called the Cannabis, and it's where all the biggest industry movers and shakers of the cannabis world go to showcase and present to the future what's going on in the world. It's like the high times of the world, the Cannabis Expo. But that's in Spain. That's one of the other countries. Amsterdam used to be, everyone used to think, Holland, go to Amsterdam and do that. It's not the spot no more. You just recently went there.
Yeah, I went to Amsterdam 2 years ago.
It's still happening. You could go to a coffee shop. They're the staple of going to a coffee shop, have a coffee and a joint, that kind of action, which is now going to start happening in Los Angeles.
Really?
As of this year, they're going to start opening cannabis lounges where you can partake in a coffee shop and smoke, ingest in the same place where you can buy. Because I think that's one of the little loopholes right now, that you can't consume in a place that you're selling. That's why these sessions are considered illegal, and possibly that's why they were raided.
Got it. So that makes a lot of sense.
How,
you
like,
can't consume.
you can't just,
So where can you consume? At your house, basically.
in your private area. You know, weed is legal in California. You just can't smoke everywhere. You know what I mean? Be sensible. Just like liquor, drinking is illegal, but you can't just walk down the street boozing down the street. You can get busted.
Yeah,
same shit.
Cool. So going back to kind of like your personal history and you kind of touched on it, because I find it funny, right? I find some people funny when they talk about cannabis as the cure-all.
Yeah, right.
Now, like, I understand totally, and this hits close to home because there's people that I'm very close with that, do suffer from pain, right? And they do say that cannabis really helps with that, right? Me personally, it makes my ass pretty paranoid. I get inside my head, I get anxious. Like,
it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it makes my headache worse. Whatever, the times I have done it, whatever. So that's one. But you said earlier that we're getting high to get high, and yeah.
That's really what the culture was. That's what built what it is now. The medical culture, because it's all the people of our age. We were teenagers when we were smoking to get high. As you got older, you started learning more about it, and as new technologies unraveled new things about it, like the whole CBD revolution that's now that we all live within now, and that's like the cure all.
So break down what is CBD.
It's CBD is a cannabidol, cannabinoids. It's a little element of the cannabis plant which induces the healing process, the healing proportions of the cannabis plant, whereas THC is your psychoactive element that brings the fun, the
and you and
the
Paul,
trip out.
You partake in pure CBD.
I have. I don't anymore. But
you don't anymore. And why is that? So just so you listeners out there know, like John said, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The CBD is a property of cannabis that people believe to have healing properties, right?
Yes.
And then THC is
the psychoactive, where you get the high from,
right? And you can buy CBD in very many forms. You can take. It's as legal as getting it mailed to you, right? You can get it mailed.
You
to
can
you
get it pretty much everywhere. It's
you
legal
get it
in
anywhere
all
and everywhere.
states.
It's not illegal.
Yes.
And
It's even at your local grocery store.
Yeah.
For reals?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And so you, Paul, what did you? What kind of CBD did you take? Tell us about that.
It was an oil of some sort. I don't know. There was CBD in it. I tried using it. It just didn't work for me.
And how did it make you feel?
Calm.
That's usually
for the most part.
One of the properties. It's a calming. It's a calming sensation. A lot of people that use CBD are people that are hyperactive. Mm-hmm. Some people that suffer from not seizures, but the like anxieties and stuff like that that you get. It brings it down. It's a chilling agent. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not when you ingest CBD, you're not gonna feel the same effect of like how I'm about to light this blunt right here. I'm gonna feel high and I'm gonna feel sedated. Mm-hmm. Whereas CBD is actually almost you feel energized. Here's one thing about CBD. If you get too high on regular weed, smoke a little bit of CBD or take a little bit of CBD and it'll bring you down, it'll level you out. It's one of the beauties of the plant. It heals you. If you're too fucked up off it, you can still use it to bring you down. The healing properties to it.
How come it didn't work for you, Paul?
It was just making me hella anxious afterwards.
So it had the opposite effect.
Really?
Yeah. So I would be cool for, I don't know how long, but towards the end of it, I start getting, I'd feel a little bit strung out.
Yeah, and what's funny about that, or not funny, but what I find interesting is that, it's really different strokes for different folks when it comes to cannabis, right?
I think that's the challenge, really. And I think one of the interesting things for me personally is, we talk about smoking herb when we're younger, getting high and doing all these things. And then if you want to kind of analyze it a little bit and go a little bit deeper into it, you have to wonder how much of that is because you were medicating. You were medicating back then, right?
Right.
Like we talk about that it was for fun, to feel good, to go watch a movie stoned.
Fun.
But at the same time, you have to wonder, psychologically speaking, are you medicating, for whatever reason as a younger person, like teenage angst and everything else. And so as we get older and become adults, a lot of the conversation is around medicating, right? Because it's like, oh, well, now that I'm a little bit older and I look back and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I got anxiety. I got, I have insomnia.
I think of it as like a wordplay.
Is it a cop-out? I was going to say, is it a cop-out?
It's a wordplay in my opinion because, like I said, I still get high to get high. But at the same time, I'm medicating. I'm taking care of my medical reason. Well, let's go back into why I got a medical card.
Yeah, let's go.
I crack my neck a lot. You know, do you find that as like a reason to have a medical card?
Oh yeah, I've seen
You know,
I've
people
seen
use
one
it-
of those questionnaires, dude. Like you
Yeah.
can just say like pretty much anything, right?
I said I crack my neck too much. You know, everybody in the room there uses, oh, I have insomnia. I need a Medicaid to get sleep. Motherfucker, you smoke a lot of weed and you knock out, so you say that you can't sleep, so the doctor will give you the medical card. That's what it came down
Got
to.
you. So you know, to some people it might be a cop out, especially to the old school weed smokers, right?
Yes, I believe so.
But now that it's kind of making its way to the forefront, what are your views on actually medicating and the healing properties? And there's so much. I mean, you know, there's so much scientific evidence, you know, either for or against. And there's so many people who say different things. But what's your opinion?
My opinion, it does what everyone says it does. And when you medicate, and it helps you with all your ailments you have, from headaches to menstrual pains to joint pains and everything, THC and CBD, the cannabis plant, yes, you medicate. We're older now. That's why we like to use that terminology of medicating, because we're older and we're all brittle, you know, but you're still getting high. You know, the real thing is we smoke dank to smoke dank and get high, and that's why we love it, you know. And it's not the drug, the Schedule I drug that which written on paper. You smoke some weed, you're not gonna go out in a crazy fit like they used to say in Reefer Madness and a crazy.
Oh, Reefer Madness. You guys seen
You know,
that?
you're not gonna go out
Oh,
in a
dude, check
crazy.
it out. It's
you're gonna
crazy.
smoke some
It's-
weed and you're gonna be happy, enjoy your company with friends, maybe enjoy a video game, a movie, you know, and you're gonna fall asleep.
Yeah.
It's not like the drugs. I'm on drugs kind of thing.
Oh yeah, like I'll tell you this much right now. I'd rather be in a room full of stoned people than a room full of crazy drunk people. That's
Right?
for sure.
And like I was saying, like, with the whole medicating, yes, we are medicating, because we know now. We know we're a little bit more knowledgeable. We know that there's medical benefits to when you smoke. Like, damn, I knew I was right this whole time.
Yeah.
Well, I was getting high to get high. But now that we know that we can medicate off it and this is helping us out, we're benefiting from it. Yeah, you can say you're medicating now, but it's a wordplay, in my opinion.
Well, I know. I mean, to be fair, I know a lot of people that actually it does make them feel a lot better, and that are suffering from some gnarly stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as it's not something that's killing, because prescription pills are not.
It's no joke, man.
It's
But
no joke.
Cannabis
So
is
I'd rather have-
overruling that opioid industry, where a lot of people that used to take those types of pills are now switching to cannabis to medicate. And like you said, yes, there are people that really use this for the medicinal use, and all the power to them for doing that. But the majority and the mass of people, this country going green, the world going green, is because the people that used to get high when they were younger, they're now in the place of legislation and stuff like that. They're the politicians that are there that are making these changes. They're of the same
they're probably
age.
like, oh, yeah,
They're
it's
the
not
same
that
mind.
bad.
No, it's not that
Yeah.
bad. They grew up with it too, and when
Sure.
they were young, they're probably just as passionate and saying, like, when I get to where I need to be, I'm gonna make the change, and that's why we're seeing these changes. Because prior to our generation, the Generation X, cannabis was an outlawed drug, and it was looked as like the boogeyman. You know what I mean? The people that were smoking it and knew the truth early then are now in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're in the places to make the change.
Got
and
it.
the like minds are together, and that's why a lot more people, if you look from the difference between the 80s, 90s to the 2000s, the acceptance has just always gone up more and more. We're at almost 75, just over. Like, don't be believing what you've seen on TV that when California passed the recreational, it just won by like 50-something%. Everybody wanted to smoke weed out here in California. They thought, oh man, this is our chance to let our voice be heard. We're gonna make weed legal.
Yeah.
And they did, and
And there's a lot of money behind it.
yeah.
I mean, or they're making a lot of money, I should say. All right, so now that we got like kind of all that out of the way and some of the history, what would you recommend somebody that doesn't use cannabis?
Take
Right.
your time. Take your time. This isn't for kids. The reason why they add.
Well,
the
I don't know. A
ages
lot
and
of people
so
say it is for kids.
I don't agree with that.
You don't
know what
agree
I
with
mean?
it? Do you guys agree with
I
that?
don't
Like
agree that
how
this
about
ain't for
how about
kids.
like cancer patients? What are you guys' view?
in special
circumstances,
situations
yeah.
like that, I think it's worth a try because cancer is kind of, it's kind of like a dead end path. So
There you go, yeah.
you should try whatever you can.
You should have that right to do that. But as in, like, kids should not be playing with the weeds.
Well, no,
Straight
kids
up,
shouldn't be
you know.
playing. Okay, so
You know,
like outside of
developing
that,
developing
right?
minds take time. You know,
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
You
yeah.
need time for the brain to
Yeah,
develop
so,
and
okay.
Not
and
to
know.
give like an 8-year-old,
It's just like
puff of
joint, just
like alcohol.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
how alcohol.
What do you
take a
think,
little
Paul? You look
sip.
like you have something to say about this.
Oh, I don't know, man. I'm curious about the whole discussion of recreational versus medicinal. And I think I actually have to disagree with you about what you're saying about people just wanting to get high. I mean, I'm sure that's a big part of what got us to where we are now.
Right.
I'm thinking about the next generation and the next phase and what that
They're
looks
hella
like.
smart. They're really smart, and look where we're at right now. It's because of the new generation. They look from our mistakes, like they weren't doing it right. They're doing it right. You know what I mean? Like the whole branding of cannabis.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying the branding of cannabis it's changed. Go to Rampart and you get a plastic baggie full of weed that they gave you. Now you can go to the store and it's all flavors and types, and they're packaged very nice. Where it's friendly and it's not like the whole thing with like cigarettes when you advertise to kids. It's not something that's advertised to kids. It's just now packaged properly. It's like it's a commodity.
I got a lot to say about that too, but what were you going to say?
I think this is a challenge. It's that the whole medicinal side of it isn't fully fleshed out. It's the Wild West, man. So let's go back to CBD for a second. I bought some CBD oil. I reached out to the e-commerce site that I was buying from, and I had a lot of questions about how to use it because I've never really tried CBD before. And so I asked, hey, this is what I'm trying to solve. Like, is this the right product for me? What sort of dosage am I looking at?
Right.
Zero answers because legally they can't answer any of those questions.
No kidding.
They couldn't do it. To the point where it's like, well, some people might say, but ultimately
dancing around
it
the
just
question,
depends on you as a person, right? And I think that kind of extends all the way through. Like if I try to buy a herb now,
Okay.
there's no guidance at all. I did the same thing. I try to ask questions like, hey man, like this is what I'm trying to get at. What do you think? I don't,
Yeah, when it comes to like ordering online, buying delivery service and stuff like that, you get no help. It's not a very personal thing. It's more of like you got to know what you want, and Mr. Nice Guy is going to show up at your door with your product.
All right, so why don't you tell what? Oh, go ahead.
So, I mean, just to bring it back to the whole, if you're 8 years old and you're suffering from seizures, what does that mean, right? Well, here's what I propose, or here's what I throw back to that question. What does it mean? If you're a parent and you have an 8-year-old suffering from seizures and you can't find answers to try to medicate your kid, then what does that really mean for the industry as a whole? Because if we're going to talk about medicinal use, but you can't find medicinal
you can't
answers,
even give a proper answer to a basic question of how does this help me?
Mm-hmm.
Every time that question is brought up, in any kind of discussion, they always talk about the cannabis and so what does it?
Well, they bring up case studies,
They
basically.
bring case studies of
and case studies
seizures.
mean like, oh, this person it worked on this person. We're not,
Exactly. There's no actual in black and white. This is what it does for you. This is what you're treating it with.
Mm-hmm.
The whole seizures which is the most common thing that everyone talks about. Oh, they had seizures and it helped my seizures. Of course, it's gonna help your seizures. The cannabis has the properties to fix that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Or alleviate that, so to say.
yeah, well, a good friend of mine who asked me not to mention this person's name out of whatever they work in, whatever industry they work in, but said that this person suffers from a lot of joint and muscle pain, right? And while the THC or cannabis, CBD, all of it doesn't, you can't prove if it helps. From a medicinal standpoint, this person's like, well, it relaxes me enough where I don't have to take pain pills. And I think that in itself, if you don't have to take, manufactured
Doctors recommend
Norcos or those really heavy duty pain medication, there's something to be said about that, and there's also something to be said about this placebo effect too. The placebo works wonders, right? But not to get ahead of ourselves. I wanted to ask you, John, for those who don't know anything, obviously when you talk about cannabis, it's one of those topics where, just like we did right now, where you can go off and start citing
tangents,
stuff
yeah,
that
yeah.
you know what I mean, you heard it. But if they're interested in trying it out, right?
Yes.
Can you break down, you know what I mean? And I know you mentioned it's not for kids.
Yes, yeah.
You
Going
know,
back to what I was
so
saying,
people
it's not for
so
kids.
responsible
Start slow.
adults.
Yeah, a responsible adult. Start dosage slow, just like anything you would do. You don't go into it head first and just go 100 miles an hour. Dip your toes in the pool. If you want to take a toke, you take a toke. Give yourself treat it like a science project.
Yeah, it's funny
take
because
a toke.
we
give
have
yourself 30 minutes and see what
yeah.
it does for you. Does it make you happy? Does it make you paranoid? Which case studies. Each person is different. You could have a high-strung person that smokes it, and all of a sudden they get real paranoid. Yeah. Or you can get a guy that's high-strung and smoke and become really relaxed.
That's the good thing about weed, though. It's like you can smoke so much of it, and the worst thing that can happen is you go to sleep.
Right?
Or you eat a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then if you're like me, you can get like super paranoid and stuff, and
right.
and that bottle of whatever syrup that was right there says. Well, you can always take more, but you can never take less.
And that's true for all edibles. You know what I mean? When you're ingesting cannabis.
Okay, so talk about the different ways that you can take cannabis.
Obviously, the smoking, which we're all familiar with, smoking cannabis in joints.
Smoking the actual plant.
Smoking the tree plant in, the traditional ways, rolling in a joint, smoking it in a blunt. This one right here in particular is a backwood. It's a leaf. It's the fronto leaf, and it's a regular tobacco leaf, and it's really nice. But, you can ingest it by eating it, and that's with the edibles. Everyone talks about the brownies and cookies, and like you said, you can eat. What was you can eat?
You can always take more, but you can never take
less. Mm-hmm. Listen to that right there. You know what I mean? I say go in baby steps, and you just like anything in life. You don't, get some practice. Practice makes perfect. You know what I mean? So just go slow. It's not for kids. This is what I'm saying. Like the psychoactive element of cannabis, it could take you on a wild ride. You know what I mean? This is not for kids. When you're an adult, like drinking a beer. When you had your first beer or your first drunk experience, not drinking a beer. First time you got drunk, that was an experience, right? Where you never felt that ever. The next day you felt like trash, and then you learn to adapt and know how to get drunk and have fun. And you know that you're gonna get trash. It's gonna have you all messed up the next day, but you know how to work with it. You adapt. Same thing with cannabis, but you don't get that hangover. But I'm saying, you try it. You find your limits. You know what I mean? You're always with cannabis, like Brian was saying, you can smoke a whole lot of it, and the worst part of it is you're just gonna fall asleep. So try to find that line of where it is where it's fun and then enjoying it, or the time where you fall. You might have to go overboard, and I smoke too much. A whole joint's too much for me. I'm more of a half joint kind of guy. When I'm a half joint, I'm a fun loving guy. I like to have a good time, and it wears down, and I do what I do. I smoke a whole joint. I'm stuck on the couch. I can't even talk, and I fall asleep. Know your limits.
And what are the two different types of strains one can use?
There's two. Well, there's actually three. Now with CBD in the whole play, but there's cannabis sativa, which is like your cerebral uppity high, and there's cannabis that's indica, which is your stony body, stoned like a stone. You're stuck. You know what I mean? You're stoned. You're couch locked. Your body high. Cannabis sativa for the brain.
Yeah, a lot of people always say
cannabis,
in the couch.
Indica, yeah. Indica in the couch for your sedating. But there's a third one with like CBD in there for your ailments. I think it's called the rudellis. Cannabis rudellis, and this is in referral to the healing properties.
Okay.
Because everyone knows cannabis sativa, cannabis indica. Oh, I'm more of I smoke OGs, and I like my indicas. Oh, I like my hazes, and I'm a sativa guy. I get creative and artistic. But now you got CBD as well. I just do it for my wellness. I do it for my wellness, and you know what I mean.
I just read CBD is actually good for high blood pressure.
Oh,
That's
really?
awesome.
All you Filipinos out there.
Exactly.
Next time you have your lechon party, make sure you have a bowl of CBD for your aunties and
Oh,
uncles.
jeez.
Have
Louise.
yourself some CBD water. You know what I mean?
I have to take my pill first.
Because you know,
You know how many times I've heard that? Oh, I didn't take my pill today. I can't eat that.
that's so true, right? But CBD is good for high blood pressure. That's good to know. See?
Yeah, you know what? I feel like that CBD helps. I've heard, helps with pretty much
And going back
everything.
to like the differences and everything, I love that we can use it medicinally, but we've been smoking it recreationally, and if there was a way to just kind of like differentiate recreational and medicinal, when you're feeling low and you're feeling low on energy, you smoke some dank and you get back up and you're back up, you're medicating. Now you're at a party and you're hanging with the bros and someone's passing a blunt, you're getting high, you're just recreationally enjoying it. That's what what it really is.
Do you feel that when you're not, because you like you said, you've been using cannabis for a very long time,
Quite a while now.
ever since I know
quite a
you,
while.
and what's the longest you've gone without cannabis, and how does it make you feel?
The mood swings are definitely real. You know what I mean? When you don't smoke, it's a withdrawal feeling. You're a little bit shorter with your temper. Well, for myself, speaking on myself, I'm a little bit shorter on my temper, like because when you haven't smoked, and this maybe haven't smoked for maybe 3-4 days. You know what I mean? Haven't smoked for a while. It's not something like, oh, I haven't smoked for a day and I'm a fucking asshole. If you haven't smoked for a while, you're gonna find that your temper's a little bit shorter. You're a little bit more diligent with your work. I think you're just more on point and you're a little sharper. Whereas when you're smoking and you're in your stupor of being high a lot and everything, you let things slide and you take a little bit more easy. You take it a little easier.
Yeah, right.
You know what I
on.
mean?
Cool, man.
And so like quitting smoking weed is not something like quitting drinking or smoking cigarettes. You can stop smoking dank, and it really doesn't affect you that bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no like physical response.
It doesn't really,
Yeah,
like
that's
in the
what I
movies
hear.
when people get off the heroin, they gotta lock them in a room and they're just fucking
Well, yeah, because
batshit crazy.
there's a dependency, right? And
Yeah,
and that's the biggest differentiator with cannabis is that you're not locked in on that physical dependency.
And I think that's why it shouldn't be considered a Schedule I drug. It's not like a mind altering drug. You know what I mean? It's a wellness mood altering drug. You know what I mean? But not more of like the hallucinogenic or anything like that. Because I don't know anybody that really seen shit when you're on weed. It's more of a wellness thing. You feel better. You're uplifted, you feel a little bit more creative or in tune to do something, you lock in your focus, depending on what you're smoking.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Like imagine all the gamers in the world that are playing, they smoke a little thing and they're locked in, bullseyes all day long, the Call of Duty heads or whatever. It's
Video
just
games.
Video games, people love smoke. You get into a movie, you smoke a J and watch a movie and you get, into the movie, like you're your own 3D. Your third eye's open and you're watching this.
Nice. Yeah. All right. So for a first timer walking into a shop, what do you recommend they do? Talk to the people, ask them questions.
Always talk to your bud tenders, but never take the bud tender's word as God. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they're trying to sell you a product.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of bad bud tenders.
Yes.
No disrespect, but
Shout out to all the bud tenders.
Do your homework. No knocking to any of the bud tenders, But
so do your own research is what you recommend.
I always recommend do your own research. If you're going into a shop, just think in your head, I'm buying weed. They just want to sell you weed. They're not selling you anything else, So everything you ask, hey, how is this? It's the best.
Or try this.
What about, hey, how about this one? Hey, I'm liking this. What do you think about this? It's the best. I guarantee you they don't say anything bad about any of their strains. Like, you know what? They'll say, the worst thing they would say was like, well, I prefer this one over that.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this? If I were to just ask you individually about this strain right here, it's the best.
Can I just talk about my process a little bit?
Yes.
I think one thing that's helped for me is a lot of dispensaries will have their menu online now, which is helpful. So I'll check out the menu, and then I'll actually read about the strains and try to learn a little bit more about each individual strain. And there's a website, N as in Nancy, C as in Charlie, S as in Sam, M as in Mary .nl for, I'm guessing, Netherlands.
Yeah.
There's a couple of apps that you can get on your phone. One of them is called Leafly.
Yeah.
And that's like the periodic table of the elements of cannabis. Any kind of strain you can think of, you just write in the name, and it'll find it, and it'll break it down for you.
Is that the same thing with that?
And it's pretty much the same kind.
And CSM is cool because they get really scientific. I mean, they get really detailed and technical about the different strain reviews and get into the genetics a little bit.
Yeah.
So the downside is it's not a craft source review like Leafly and WeMaps. It's craft source, so a lot of people have tried it and talk about it. That's good, right? The more people, the better. And CSM is a little different because they're just focused, hyper focused on talking about the plant itself and what it means to grow it, the genetic lineage behind it, and then how it affects everyone. So I appreciate that just because it's awesome. Like technically I feel a little bit more educated before I buy something. And I think the experience that I've always wished for, is that I could walk into a dispensary and a bud tender would break it down for me because they care so much about what I'm about to buy.
I'll tell you this right now. We took a trip to Seattle, and there were bud tenders that were like that. We walked in there, and that was like one of the greatest cannabis dispensary experiences I ever had. It was called Have a Heart. It's right next to the cookie store in Belmont. Is it Belmont, Seattle? We walk in. Right when you walk in, they have a bunch of liaisons, cannabis liaisons, where they have their little booklet. They're like weed sommeliers, you know what I mean? But the first thing that you see when you walk in the door, there's a 50-foot wall of all their products in the store. Anything. So if you want to just go in and look for yourself, it's like a little museum of weed. But like I said, they have these greeters that come in. They're like, hey, can I assist you with your cannabis needs? And when you talk to them, you kind of tell them what you want. Like, hey man, I'm looking for your baddest indica. I want the strongest OG you got here. Oh, well, let me show you right here. It's all marked up. They brought us to the, this is the Cookies exotic brand, and they broke down the pricing for you. Yeah. And you can't smell it or anything. It's just like a dispensary where you pick your toys, you pick your goodies, and then they'll write it down what you have. They send it through the chute, and then you go to the front to pay.
It's like Brian's Rampart experience.
Yeah, exactly. No, hand over hand right there. You know what I mean? You gotta window shop first after you window
go
shop.
Over there.
Dude, speaking of experiences, man, John, and I'd like to hear everybody's story. Give me like one of your. You've been smoking weed for a long time. Let me hear something. Let me hear one of your crazier weed adventures.
Okay, the year was. When do we talk about that?
I know you. I've known you for a long time because I know you have a lot, right? But unfortunately,
How about this? The year was 2011. No, 2000. No, excuse me. No. 2001. 2001. This is. Excuse me. 2002. This is 2002. April of 2002. This is a year after 9/11. I'm leaving from New York. I was living in upstate New York at the time, and we scored some buds for the ride home because we're gonna take the bus.
Wait, this is when were you in the Navy still?
No, I was out of the Navy. I was living in upstate New York in the city of Saratoga Springs with my sister-in-law at the time. But it's time to come back to California, and instead of flying, I'm a young buck out there. I'm taking the bus back. So.
Is that the Greyhound?
Yeah, taking the Greyhound from Port Authority, New York, to California. The end point is Los Angeles, or actually the Oxnard Transportation Center. But, later in the story, I'll let you know what happens. But starting in New York, we get a quarter of some, bomb weed to take home and, smoke along the way. Make it to about Baltimore, and we trade the weed for hash. It's not too far, Baltimore from New York. We make it there, and we trade the weed for hash from some guy at a bus stop, in a bus stop,
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, the Greyhound. Well, you'll come across some pretty
crazy,
interesting characters,
nefarious characters.
Some nomads, and
we're there on a break. It's about a 15-minute break. We were out there smoking a cigarette, Trail. And this guy, he's saying he got hash. And you got hash? We looked at it like, whoa, he got some hash. We got some weed. We want to trade, like about maybe a little over an eighth now, because from New York to where we smoked a little, traded this little slab of hash for the weed that we had, and that made it all the way with us to California. We were smoking hash, every stop from there on. When we got to LA, or actually we got to Long Beach, the city of Long Beach, Bride picks us up. our buddy Brian, he fucking picks us up. He was living on Ocean at the time.
Belmont Shores.
He picks us up, and we smoked the rest of that hash, you know, at his place, and that's my weed story. we had weed. I don't know what the end was, but we had weed, and we traded it for hash, and we made it, and it made it all the way to California. Shit, my bad. I'm just saying, like,
The Greyhound
I don't know if it was supposed to magically, you know, like.
Then I was naked.
I didn't know where I was going with it, but like what happened was we never made it to Oxnard. Brian, you know, we're on the Greyhound from Las Vegas to the Los Angeles section. I called Brian like, yo, man, there's a stop in Long Beach. Brian picks us up in Long Beach, and you know we end up smoking the hash, and the rest is history. I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, damn, I totally forgot. Like, there's a lot that went on in there. You know, when we stopped in Colorado, we were smoking in this really, really nice business area. You know, you got a couple people that we met on the bus. We're all smoking the hash together. It was like, you know, it was a bonding thing. The people that on the bus, this little bag of weed turned into a slab of hash that brought a bunch of people together, and we all made it California safe.
Yeah, and hungry probably.
Very hungry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Paul, you got anything, man?
I don't have an adventure story like that.
No?
I'll tell you that much. I don't know, man. I feel like weed stories just they all kind of blend together.
Yeah,
they're all the same. You know what I mean?
all
A good
the
night of
same.
smoking. We smoke this.
Well, and there's something to be
It's like
said to that.
watercolors.
There's something to be said to that, right? Because then if I ask you, okay, give me a drunk story, and be
That's a
like
lot
bad
easier.
news, like oh man, I was bad. It's laced with bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
Or something. But Brian,
Well, it's not really a story. It's more of a feeling. When when
Right.
you first started smoking and you started smoking a lot, you would feel like you're flying.
Yeah,
that's-
you're on the
that's what you're doing,
clouds.
you're high.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as you smoke more and more, you kind of lose that feeling. That's kind of like a feeling you only feel in the beginning, when you have the jiggles, when you just start
Yeah,
like
you
giggling,
just can't,
like giggling
cannot.
like a
You have the
mother.
perma smile. You just can't let go of that smile.
Were you younger?
Yeah, the closest thing that's ever come to that is when you smoke at high elevations, like when you go high up in the mountain,
Like on a
when you go to
mountain.
cabin or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
You get that back. So
No kidding. Was it because of the lack of oxygen? Probably.
it
you know
is.
what I mean?
It's the elevation.
Yeah. That's crazy.
yeah, I once ate a block of cheese when I was high.
Like a full block of gummy.
Yeah, it
gummy
was like a
cheese.
big old, you know what I mean, and I suffered for a couple of days, but that was a long time ago. I don't, you know, like I said, it's a little bit different for me because I start, you know, getting it's a paranoia thing. I start kind of getting inside my head a little bit, and yeah, I don't think I'm much of a weed. You know, I'll dabble. But the first time, you know, when I was younger, like a teenager, I remember, you know, when it was like you said, it was like the cool thing to do. There wasn't any, you know, my aunt would be like, "Where the hell is, you know, why are there so many holes on our window screens and the freaking, you know what I mean, the screens from the damn faucets are gone." Yeah, because my neighbor, a good friend of mine, we used to call him MC Hammer. So how long ago it was, had like a peace pipe thing that was like a decorative piece at his pad, so he jacked that
using
and,
the
you know what I mean?
faucet screens.
Yeah,
That's great.
and then like our city, because we grew up together, our city being
Best
dry.
weed in the world.
Yeah, but no, being dry was a thing too. That doesn't happen anymore, obviously.
You know, all around, no one's really dry anymore. But
Yeah, ever.
I have to say, where we live, we're coming from, you know, the Ventura County area. There's always been great weed there, just like great weed. One of the most notable strains from the area was the White Widow.
Oh.
The real White Widow was coming from Oxnard. There was just this strain. It was something different. It was you know, like when the Chronic first came out, when we're all smoking brick weed and like, you know, Chronic weed came out. Wow, that's, you know, the shit.
Pretendo.
Now when we're smoking, everyone's smoking Chronic and all this stuff, and someone busted out that White Widow, that was like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
You don't
That's
got that.
that.
You don't got that wow no more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
'Cause everything's really, really good.
Nice.
You know, like I got a couple bags right here. If you want to look at it, it's really good. All of them look really good.
Yeah.
You look at
yeah.
all of them. It doesn't matter which one you open.
It's gonna be it's gonna get you messed up.
All the weed is great. You know, everyone coming into the cannabis industry now is coming in at a great time. We've already done all the dirty work for you guys. We smoked the brick weed, and we know it's not that great, but you know, someone got to do it, and it's been done.
Sure.
And look where we're at now. It's like fine wines. You know, you go to a store, and in time, the good weeds are gonna, or the good cannabis is gonna be in the stores, and you can actually really like. Right now, it's like a bootleg version. You go in, yeah, it's kind of like a store, but in time, it's gonna be just like buying your beer and buying your wine.
Yep.
It's becoming more accepted all around. You know what I mean? I love the fact that the nation's going green, and it's a worldwide thing. A lot of countries are already green.
Sure.
Like we're talking about, like Spain.
Sure.
They become the new front runners of, like, you know, the weed world. You know, they got the best going on over there.
Nice. That's cool, man. And man, you have one of the best and most entertaining. I just what do you want to call it? Internet presence,
Thanks,
right?
bro.
So you have your own podcast. Why don't you let them know?
Yeah, you can check me on all the listening podcast streams. It's called At the Parlor with Potter.
At the Parlor with Potter.
Yes, you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spotify, Outlook. And I wanted to let you guys know that Anchor FM, this ain't a plug, but Anchor FM is really, truly the podcast hosting just all around site, and it'll help get the basic buds to where you guys need to be. This is where
they paying you, man?
No, they ain't paying me up, but I push for it because it's super real.
Yeah.
It's really easy to use, and it's gonna get this podcast. I think that
cool.
That's one of the tools you guys need for this. That'll take it to the next level where you can distribute it out to a lot of people. This podcast can be heard from a lot of people by using just that app alone.
And why don't you drop your Instagram, man? Because that, I mean, if you don't follow it, you should. It's freaking.
If you don't know, you should follow your boy on all the Instagrams and the Snapchats and social media sites. Herb Potter, Herb HERB Potter, POTTER. Use an underscore if you need to, but look up Herb Potter, you'll find it. You know.
Yeah, if you want to find a real, true, raw to the street, you know, just all around good vibes. Like you said, positive vibe. Technician. I've known this guy for a long time. Fudge, man, thanks for coming by.
Appreciate it, man. Shit.
So yeah, like we said, the Basic Buds, we are a collective. So you know, you have an open invitation. You know, we'll probably be seeing you a lot.
I hope to be here a lot, and we got a lot.
Yeah, you're like our in-house weed expert. Right?
I guess
so
I'll just play as your in-house weed analysis. You know what I mean?
I just wanted to mention this guy rolls around with his weed in a Pelican case.
You got to keep it clean in 2019 and moving on forward. You know what I mean?
There might be feds out there, Brian. Just kidding.
It's okay. You know what I mean? It's for safety. You know what I mean? This ain't for kids. Let's stress that. This ain't for kids.
Yeah. So bringing it.
Really
Okay, let's break it down one more time. Definitely, you know, be careful, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what you recommend for the people.
Choices are on yourself. You know what I mean?
Start slow.
In
the couch. Sativa gets you going.
Yeah.
They got hybrids out there.
You know,
you can smoke it. You can eat it.
Yeah, you can smoke it. You eat it. There's a lot of things you can do with it.
You can vape it. Do the research on what was that?
Yeah.
What was that again?
NCSM.nl.
NCSM as Mary .nl for the Netherlands.
And that'll give you your
They'll give you some insight.
your insight on your cannabis, you know, research. You definitely, I really stress, do your own research. You know, when you go to a shop and they, you feel ripped off, you don't want that feeling. You don't want that feeling. Go and know what you want to get.
Yeah, and that could make for a really bad first experience
that's
that
a
you'll
bad
never
experience
go back again.
Yeah.
But just know there are people out there that are finding real health benefits, even though scientifically there might not be anything. But like I said, there's something to be said about at least the relaxation portion of it.
True.
Unless you're like me. And then there's also something to be said about the placebo effect, you know, if that's the case as well. So, and what Brian said, man, the worst that can happen is that you fall asleep.
Right.
Any parting words, Herb?
No, man. I appreciate you guys having me on board with y'all, and I hope to have more fun times with y'all on future podcasts. This is dope.
Let's get it, man.
Cheers, you stoners.
Let's go.
out.
Peace.